Okay, we're going to talk about why upper trunk rotation is so absolutely valuable and essential in your home exercise program. And to get to what it does, I thought I would bring the spine for some explanation. So upper trunk rotation, as its title describes, it rotates the upper trunk or thoracic spine. And I think it's important to know that the thoracic spine is 50% of your spine. So here we have your base of your skull, your subocciput. And then we have 7 cervical vertebrae. And they're pretty teeny, aren't they? And then we start to move in size to larger thoracic vertebrae. So upper trunk rotation is focusing on T1, which is where my finger is here, through T12. So look at this whole area all the way to T12. This is what we're trying to rotate and create freedom of mobility in upper trunk rotation. And if you keep looking at this 50% of your spine, the thoracic spine, you notice it sits between the neck and the low back. And we tend to have the most issues with neck and low back. There's more joint spondylosis, arthritis, disc herniations in the neck and low back. And part of the reason for that is that, again, from T1 to T12, this area should be our most mobile triplanar part of our spine. These joints were designed for rotation and side bending, and when there's stiffness through the upper back, which I want to let you know is most people, and here's why. The body chooses stability. It chooses safety over mobility. So when we have strain and improper forces on our body, the body starts to go on alert or even shutdown mode. And what it's going to shut down is from my 2 fingers. It's going to shut down who could move the most. So a lot of you are walking around, unbeknownst to you, with stiffness through your whole mid back. And this stiffness forces the motion to your neck and your low back when you're doing simple tasks like reaching and walking, stepping, stairs, just getting something out of the refrigerator requires mobility, flexibility in this thoracic spine that many of us have lost. So we're going to return that mobility. We're going to wake up the thoracic spine to protect these little bits at the neck and these bigger bits at the low back. So this guy gets a lot of attention treating neck and low back. Now, while I have you here, so here's your backside, the spinous process. Here's the front. From the side, you can see the curves in the spine. I talk so much on the videos about curves, but see how there's a slight inward curve here? This is the backside, and this is called the lordosis. And it's an inward curve at the neck, and then it's an outward curve called a kyphosis in the thoracic spine, and then it switches again to an inward curve. This guy lost his, there we go, inward curve to the low back. So this S curve was designed for shock absorption, and it protects joints of your torso, joints of your body. And then you also have these discs, which were also designed for shock absorption. So that's just a little aside, but I wanted you to have a pointer for those curves and an understanding that so much of your back is your mid-back, and it has to be mobile for protection of the neck and low back. So I'm going to move that guy out of the way, and I'm going to keep talking about upper trunk rotation and why it's so important. Well, we talked about freeing it to protect the neck and low back. But I wanted you to realize that through this thoracic spine, which is really from here to, my belly button is out, to here, okay? This is those 12 vertebrae. And what's between my hands? Oh, I don't know, lungs and heart and diaphragm and stomach and liver and pancreas and intestines, so our organs. And upper trunk rotation provides a rotational ringing for organ health. It helps mobilize the organs, particularly in the abdominal content, and it helps them to detoxify, and it also helps for them in that mobilization process. The body settles back to its ideal position, so it helps restore organ alignment. Also, with upper trunk rotation, the psoas, remember you have a right and a left psoas. And the psoas muscle attaches deep in the hip joints, and it comes up and attaches to all 5 lumbar vertebrae, and you have a right and a left. That psoas attaches, ooh, this is good. The psoas attaches on the front of the vertebral bodies, as well as these bones on the side called the transverse process. So the psoas muscle grips into the lumbar spine bones, okay? And again, remember you have a right and a left. Now what's happening in upper trunk rotation is the psoas is engaged eccentrically to stabilize the low back and force the motion through the thoracic spine. So upper trunk rotation all of a sudden became a psoas exercise or a hip flexor exercise, because psoas is known primarily as a hip flexor, though I consider it a hip flexor lumbar stabilizer. So you're addressing that so crucial muscle, iliopsoas, in upper trunk rotation, and you're helping lengthen it. Even though it's working eccentrically in a lengthened position. And so you're addressing that guy. People are always asking me, how do I address my psoas? Well, upper trunk rotation does do that, and it does lengthen. Also, we talked about organ health. Because again, it's such a big rotational motion, it affects the lymph. Most of your lymph nodes are in your abdominal contents. So you're addressing lymph and therefore inflammation and detoxification with upper trunk rotation. And as we already said, the most important part is, again, or I won't say most important, but the intention is in mobilizing that thoracic spine, freeing this torso mid-back to protect the neck and low back. The upper thoracic spine is connected to your shoulder blade, and the shoulder blade is a half of the shoulder. So we also give upper trunk rotation to treat shoulder pathology, to restore the mechanics at the thoracic spine and shoulder blade. And so now we've got neck, thoracic spine, of course, low back, hips, because iliopsoas is that hip flexor, and shoulder. And we're treating all of this with upper trunk rotation, lymph, organ health, and then of course you're going to breathe in deep and breathe out long during upper trunk rotation, so you're vitalizing and restoring mobility to the diaphragm muscle as well. So those are just a couple key points as to why upper trunk rotation is my favorite. Please do recall it is a part of the pain cocktail, I call it, or the alignment recipe. There are 3 exercises that are my cheat sheet or go-to for general daily health and exercise programs for the body, and particularly for the spine, low back, and neck. And that is hip rotations, upper trunk rotation, and cat and dog. So those 3, hip rotations, upper trunk rotation, which is what we're discussing here, and cat and dog, are that alignment recipe. If you do nothing else in your day, do those 3. And all right, let's get to the upper trunk rotation exercise now.